let's just recap a little bit because, like I said, it's been a couple of weeks. But do you remember the southern kingdom, the five kings of the southern kingdom we talked about? And they were from the Amorites. And the Amorites were people who dwelt in the mountain. Okay? The lofty things. And we talked about how that is an analogy with pride. And all those kings that were mentioned in Joshua 10 had something to do with pride. One was the Lord of Justice. One was whom Jehovah impels or drives forward or urges. One was like a wild ass. One was splendid, and one was sanctuary. So we talked about pride having many faces, and it judges, it drives others, it's wild, it's out of control, thinks it's splendid, and a place of religiousness. And so, again, Joshua or Jesus had to put to humiliation and death those aspects of pride. Well, now we're into the northern kingdom. So we come to the northern campaign, and there's another bunch of kings. So let's look at Joshua 11:1. Okay, and it came to pass when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard these things that he sent to Jobab. Oh man, these names are great, aren't they? King of Madon, to the king of Shimron, to the king of Ashbash, and to the kings who were from the north in the mountains, in the plain south of Chimaroth, in the lowland, and in the heights of Dor on the west, to the Canaanites to the east in the west, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite in the mountains, and the Hivite below Hermon and in the land of Mizpah. So they went out, and they and all their armies with them, as many people and as the sand that is in the seashore in multitude, with very many horses and chariots. And when all these kings had met together, they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. But the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow, about this time, I will deliver all of them slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. So Joshua and all the people of war with him came against them suddenly by the waters of Merom, and they attacked them. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who defeated them and chased them to the greater Sidon, to the brook, to the valley of Mizpah, eastward. They attacked them until they left none of them remaining. So Joshua did to them as the Lord had told him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. Joshua turned back at that time and took Hazor, struck its king with a sword, for Hazor was formerly the head of all those kingdoms. And they struck all the people who were with them in the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was none left breathing. And then they burned Hazor with fire. So all the cities of those kings and all their kings Joshua took and struck with the edge of the sword. He utterly destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. But as for the cities that stood on their mounds, Israel burned none of them except Hazor, only which Joshua burned. And then I'm going to skip over here to verse 18. Joshua made war a long time with all these kings. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. All the other ones they took in battle. For it was of the Lord to harden their hearts so that they should come against Israel in battle, and he might utterly destroy them, that they might receive no mercy, that he might destroy them, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And then verse 23, so Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord had told Moses, and Joshua gave it as an inheritance to Israel, according to their divisions by their tribes. And then the land rested from war. Okay? Now, let's take a look at the northern kingdom, the northern kings. Now we have a bunch of kings that were mentioned there, and I'm going to go through them, and you're going to see another thing that the Lord's taken care of. So the southern kingdom, he dealt with pride. And there's something that goes along with pride, and you're going to see it with these kings. So, what are the characteristics of the northern kings that our Joshua, Jesus, had to battle against? Jabin, the king of Hazor, okay? This is what his name meant, the head of all the kingdoms, and his name literally meant whom God observes. Whom God observes. So it's not like he's out of God's gaze. He sees him. He sees what he's doing. Jobin, the king of Madon. Jobin, these are the only two kings that are mentioned, Jabin and Jobin. Those are twins, boy. You could name your twins that, Jabin and Jobin. The king of Madon. Jobin meant desert, and Madon meant strife. Strife. The king of Shimron is a watch height, it means. A watch height, which means getting up on the heights and watching, okay, observing. And then the king of Ashbash was, I shall be bewitched. I shall be bewitched. That's what his name meant. So let's put these together. This king also, his city was at the foot of Mount Carmel. Okay? And for you that are little Bible scholars, you know about Mount Carmel because it was mentioned here as we were praying about Elijah, okay, and the prophets of Baal. So, that's the place where Jezebel's 400 priests of Baal were slaughtered by Elijah on Mount Carmel. So let's put these together. Here we have the conquering of kingdoms that God observes from his throne, remember whom God observes, that cause dryness and barrenness, strife, and the high places. What goes on in the high places? Idol, yeah, or Baals or idol worship, okay? So high places where it was known that idol worship took place and where witchcraft later flourished under northern Israel's most wicked queen, old Queen Jezi. So 2 Kings 9:22. If you read that, it'll say Jehu, when Jehu came to get Jezebel, he says, her and her witchcrafts. So I thought this is interesting, that here's a place that is known for its witchcraft. And pride and witchcraft go together. Because what happens is, witchcraft, the occult, is things that are hidden, see? And so the pride leads people into witchcraft, not trusting God, but trusting in their own power. They want power that's not of God. So this territory now, with it being conquered, fulfilled God's promise to Abraham. The north and the south being conquered. Genesis 15:18-20. That's where the promise to Abraham was, that I'm going to give you all this land. Did they ever totally occupy it? No. They never totally occupied it. Why is that? If God did this conquering and the northern kingdoms and the southern kingdoms, and this is done, the campaigns are done, well, there's a little analogy to this. And this